Sam Saradava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karunya Gana Ganatam Sam Saradava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karunya Gana Ganapam Praptasya Kalyana Gurnanavasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Praptasya Kalyana Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nritya Gita Baditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramajanado Shri Vigrara Juktasya Bhaktamsa Neyunjatopi Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Kridvaiva Trupti Bhajata Shadeva Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradhikama Dabayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupanam Nam Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasa Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Nikunja Yuno Ratikali Siddhai Jajari Bhir Jukti Apekshaniya Nikunja Yuno Ratikali Siddhai Jajari Bhir Tatra Tidacha Ativalabhasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam. Sakshadharidvena Samasta Shastri Ruktastatthava Vyataiva Sadhavi Pintu Prabodja Priya eva tasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam. Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasadam. Oh, Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi. Yasya Prasadam Sadam. Oh, Yasya Prasadam. Dayam Stubham Tasya Yasapin Sanyam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam. Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam. Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityana Mine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Pachatyarisha Tarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Gaura Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Bo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Gauranga, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Ram, Haribo, Hare Haraye Namah Krishna, Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaye Kesavaye Namah, Hare Gopal Govinda Ram, Shri Madhusudam, Giridhari Gopina Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radha. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Jai Vishnu Pahar Paramahansa Prabhajaka Acharya Suttara Sarasi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhacharavina Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Vibhiti Samstavakacharya Vaishnava Shiromani Patit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patit Udhar Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Kuri Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय जय परम दयाल से नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तने का जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद श्रीमान गौरंग श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मावरण अवतार की जय गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जय की जय जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय प्रिय निदांग ट्रांसजेंडर बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गुप्ता राधा कुंसाम कुंज गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय दिलोशिव श्री राधा नीला माधव की जय श्री मायापुर नवद्वीपिका चक्रधाम की जय परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु मस्पदेव सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय जगंगा माय जमुना माय की जय तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय श्री मथुरा रानी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे all glory to the assembly bodies all glory to the assembly bodies all glory to the assembly bodies all glories all glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Bo. You leaving?
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste
Narasimhaya. Pralada Lada Dhaine. Hiranyakashi Vakshaha. Shilatankanakalae. Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimho. Yato yato yami tato Narsimha. Bahir Narsimho Hridaye Narsimho. Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapadhen. Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Tavakura Kamalavare Naka Avuta Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringa Keshavadita Radharani Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jaya Narsimhadev, Jaya Narsimhadev, Jaya Narsimhadev, Jaya Narsimhadev, Jaya Narsimhadev, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj,
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada,
Jaya Jaya
Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev.
Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev. Jai Shri Shri Bhakti Pada Sarvignash Nakari Singari Bhagavan Ki Jai. Bhakta Srista Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Gaurani Pramanande. Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai.
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha.
नमो नमः कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी
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 नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
जे मारा शरण लो तारा वंच पूरण हो
जे तुमार शरण लाओ तार वंच पूर्ण
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन बासी
तुमि कृपा करे करतरे वृंदावनवासी
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियावा
नयने हरिवो सदा जुगल रूपरासी
विनयने रिवसना जुगल रूपरासी
ए निवेदना धारो साखीर अनुगाता कोरो सेवाधिकारा दिए कोरो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दासे कोई जीना मोरा होए
कृष्ण दास कोए नमोरा
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा नमसी
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा नमसी
यानी कानी च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
तनि तनि सपपने ब्रह्मत्यागे तनि सा तनि तनि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
तनि तनि सपपने ब्रह्मत्यागे तनि सा तनि तनि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि नशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. जय तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय.
Jai Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindai Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your master upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower count with the emissaries of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your unmet servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise, may I always swim in love with Shri Radha. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai. Prabhusaitam Sunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahinam Ashrishabha Padaratam Pinastuma Adarshana Mahamatam Karotu Siddharthava Vinatatam Madhanatastu Saivanataram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prem Radha Krishna Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life or repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus we have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lord and stroll in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, somehow or other I'm fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Will my voice choke up, and will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he sure remains so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Kyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1.
To blaspheme the devotees, to dedicate their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the names of demigods, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to independent of Lord Vishnu.
3. To
disobey the orders
of the spiritual master. 4.
To blaspheme the Vedic literature, or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version.
5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7.
To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord.
8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activities of karma conduct. 9.
To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name.
And 10.
To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema.
Now let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the
Vaishnava
Vaishnavas,
devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha, kripasindubhyeva cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmadyasya Yato Niviyat Itaratas Charteswa Vigyaswarat.
Janmadyasya yatam vayaditaratascha swabhigyaswara.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyantiyat Surayaha.
Tenne Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Mujanti Suraya.
Tejo Varimadam Yatavani Mayo Yatrati Sargomisha.
Tejo Varimrida Jata Vinimajo Jatra Trisragumrisya.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi.
Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute
And the
truth.
primeval cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause of all
Of
causes.
the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
Of the creation, sustenance, destruction of the manifested
He is
universes.
directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
Is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
The original living being.
the original living
By
being.
him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
Because of him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory
of water seen
representations
on fire or land seen on water.
of water seen, the fire, land seen, the water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universes,
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental
which
abode,
is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute
Dharma
truth.
projita kaitravota,
Dharma pujita kaitaputra,
paramo nirmatsaranam satam,
paramo nirmasaranam
vedyam
satam,
vastavam atravastu,
vidyam vastavam astravastu,
shivadam tapa trayonmunam,
shivadam taputrayamranam,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni
Kimva
Krite,
Purir Ishwaraha,
Kimva Paririshvaraha,
Sadyo Hridi Aburudyatitra,
Sadyo Ruddhya Varudya Titra,
Kriti Bihi Sususubhistakshana,
Kritibhi Shushu Subhista Kyanat,
completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially
This
motivated.
Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the high truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in the
The
heart.
highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare
Such
of all.
truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such truth uproots the threefold
This
miseries.
beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity
It is beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva's maturity.
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
Is sufficient itself for God
What is
realization.
the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other
As
scripture?
soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As one is some hear the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
as a culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam,
Nigama kaparota
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam,
Sukhamukhar Mridrava Sangitam
pibata Bhagavatam rasam alayam,
Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam
muhur aho rasika bhuvibhavakaha.
Muhura Hura Sika Bhuvibabu.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad
the
Bhagavatam,
mature fruit of the desire to Vedic literatures.
the mature fruit of the desired truth of the Vedic
It
literature.
emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanating from the lips of Sri Shukadev Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this food has become ever more tasteful.
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice was all relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna.
Shramvantam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Hridyantaksto hi abhadrani.
Hridyantastu hi abhadrani.
Vidunoti Srihit Satam.
Vidunoti Surit Satam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
to hear about Krishna from the Vedic literature,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from it directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
is itself righteous activity.
It's self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart,
acts as a best wishing friend,
acts as a best wishing friend,
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purify the devotees constantly engaged in hearing of him.
Nasta presu bhadresu
Nasta praeshwa bhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
nityam bhagavata sevaya
bhagavati uttama sloke
bhagavati uttama shloke
bhaktir bhavati naistiki.
bhakti bhavati nastiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, devotee naturally develops his normal
As he
transcendental
hears
knowledge.
more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the devotees,
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadirajastamo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava
kamaloba dayaschaye
kamalobha dayaschaye
cheta etara navidam
chitaitara navidam
stitvam sattve prasidati.
stitam sarve prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional service,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion of ignorance,
and thus material lusts and avarice are diminished.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasanna manaso
Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha
Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When all these impurities are wiped away,
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis
Chidyante Sarva Samsaya
Chityante Sarva Samsaya
Shriyante Chasya Karmani
Jiyante Sachakarmani
Krishna Evat Manishwari.
Drista Evadmanishwari.
Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection,
Thus the Bhakti Yoga serves the heart of material affection
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enable ones to come at once to the stage of Samshara Samagramam,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, Verse number 7. Iti vyavachidya sa pandaveya
Iti vyavachidya sa pandaveya
prayopavesam prativishnupadyam
prayopavesham prativishnu padyam
dado mukundangrim ananya bhavo
Dadho mukundam grim ananya bhavo
muni rato mukta samasta sangha.
Muni vrato mukta sangsta sangha.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Thus the king, the worthy descendant of the Pandavas, decided once and for all on and sat on the Ganges bank to fast until death and give himself up to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who alone is able to award liberation. So, freeing himself from all kinds of associations and attachments, he accepted the vows of a stage. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The water of the Ganges sanctifies all the three worlds, including the gods and the demigods, because it emanates from the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Lord Krishna is the fountainhead of the principle of Vishnu Tattva, and therefore shelter of his lotus feet can deliver one from all sins, including an offense committed by a king unto a Brahmana. Maharaj Parikshit therefore decided to meditate upon the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, who is Mukunda, or the giver of liberation. The giver of liberations of all description. The banks of the Ganges or the Yamuna give one a chance to remember the Lord continuously. Maharaj Parikshit freed himself from all sorts of material association and meditated upon the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And that is the way of liberation. To be free from all material association means to cease completely from committing any further sins. To meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord means to become free from the effects of all previous sins. The conditions of the material world are so made that one has to commit sins, willingly or unwillingly. And the best example is Maharaj Parikshit himself, who was a recognized sinless, pious king. But he also became a victim of an offense, even though he was ever unwilling to commit such a mistake. He was cursed also, but because he was a great devotee of the Lord, even such reverses of life become favorable. The principle is that one should not willingly commit any sin in his life and should constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord without deviation. Only in such a mood will the Lord help the devotee make regular progress toward the path of liberation and thus attain the lotus feet of the Lord. Even if there are accidental sins committed by the devotee, the Lord saves the surrendered soul from all sins, as confirmed in all scriptures. Swapada mulam bhajata priyasya tyaktan yabhav vasya harir paresa vikarma yachcho patitam katanchit brunoti sarvam hridisani vistaha. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.42. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, this is an important point to understand, that only Krishna can give liberation. Other demigods can give a type of partial liberation. For example, elevation to higher material planets, especially like the moon, where you can drink somarasa. Each time you drink a draft of somarasa, you get power for another 10,000 years. It's a very powerful liquor. Don't ask me the recipe, I don't know it. Of course, you could make a lot of money. They can sell some junk like Coca-Cola and make millions and billions of dollars. Imagine how much you could make selling somarasa to give you 10,000 years of extended sense gratification. But you have to go to the moon for that. And another reason why they didn't go to the moon is they haven't found the somarasa. So they went somewhere else, not the moon. So here we see that only Krishna can give liberation, real liberation, eternal liberation. The demigods can give partial liberation in the sense of being elevated to the demigod planets where the duration of life is longer, but it just changes one's position from being, let's say, a third-class prisoner to a first-class prisoner, but you're still a prisoner to birth, death, old age, and disease. So, therefore, Lord is also the fountainhead of Vishnu Tattva. He's the origin of all the Narayana expansions in the spiritual world and all the Vishnu expansions in the material world. And there's billions of them. That is not understood by everyone. Very few people understand that. Only devotees are capable of understanding that. But that's the truth. And all the great Mahajans have validated that truth. Brahma in his Brahma Samhita, and Bhismadeva in Bhagavatam, and Kunti Devi also, and Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma, and the Kumaras, and Sukadeva Goswami. We go down the line. All these people have validated the same point, that Krishna is the origin of everything. So, when one becomes conscious of the importance to fix their mind on Krishna and take their mind away from all other nonsense, all nonsense in the material world, we're seeing an example of that right here in Maharaj Parikshit. Although, whenever we're in the material world, by circumstances, we'll be obliged sometimes to commit sinful activities, although we don't want to. But most of the time, we commit sinful activities because we want to. So that's the problem that we have. And every time there's sinful activity, meat eating, gambling, intoxication, illicit sex, there are reactions that keep us bound to the cycle of birth and death. So Prabhupada says the conditions of the material world are so made that one has to commit sins willingly or unwillingly. And the best example is Maharaj Parikshit himself, who was a recognized sinless, pious king, but he also became a victim of an offense, even though he was ever unwilling to commit such a mistake. He was cursed also, but because he was a great devotee of the Lord, even such reverses of life became favorable. So this is, in another place, Prabhupada says, when a devotee makes a mistake, by Krishna's mercy, that mistake can be turned into a great success. And, like, for example, Prabhupada was strongly advised by Srimati Morarji, don't go to America, Swamiji, you're too old, the weather there is too cold, you will not be able to survive. Well, in many ways what she said was true, and Prabhupada is 70 years old, he has some conditions, health conditions, and just on the boat coming over to America, he had 2 heart attacks. And when he arrived in America after 1 year, he had another heart attack, or a stroke, either one or the other. And he had to go back to India to recover. So, yeah, but in that, let's say, very precarious situation of his health, Krishna protected him, and against all odds, he became fabulously, miraculously successful. There's this article that's written by this Indian gentleman. I read it yesterday. He said Prabhupada was the most successful Hindu in modern times. He came to America with virtually nothing, and in 11 years he built up an international movement that is continuing to grow. So he made this point that he's the most successful Hindu in modern times. So nobody else has ever been as successful as him. And there are many successful Hindus or Indians, but it doesn't compare to what Prabhupada did, materially and let alone spiritually. So even a mistake made by a devotee by the mercy of Krishna, can be turned into a great success. So in the same way, Maharaj Parikshit himself, who was a recognized sinless pious king, but he also became a victim of an offense, even though he was ever unwilling to commit such a mistake. He was cursed also, but because he was a great devotee of the Lord, even such reverses of life became favorable. The principle is that one should not willingly commit any sin in his life and should constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord without deviation. Only in such a mood will the Lord help the devotee make regular progress toward the path of liberation and thus attain the lotus feet of the Lord. So what is this special condition that the devotee has to do or satisfy in order to have the continual protection of the Lord? And thus, by the protection of the Lord, the devotee continues on the progressive path of Krishna consciousness. That is, the devotee has to fix his mind on Krishna. See? And how do you do that? Well, it's very easy, actually. Just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, if it's so easy, why don't people do it? Well, because if a person is going to get cancer by smoking cigarettes, why don't they stop? If a person is going to get AIDS by engaging in promiscuous activity, why don't they stop? Right? If a person is going to get COVID because he's associating with other people that have COVID, why does he stop doing it? Right? No, they don't stop because they're diseased. But the disease is not a physical disease, it's a mental disease. The mental disease is they can't keep their mind on Krishna. Their mind is going here and there. There's a nice verse in Bhagavad Gita that explains that. In the second chapter, it says, Bhagaisvarya prasaktanam taya parata chetasam. So this verse says, Bhagaisvarya prasaktanam taya parata chetasam, that is, that the mind of a devotee, a non-devotee, has many branches. It's wandering all the time. Say, in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. So, the reason people can't do this simple thing of just meditate on Krishna all the time, keep the mind focused on Krishna all the time, by chanting Hare Krishna, and chanting Hare Krishna or reading Bhagavatam are both kirtan. And of course, hearing Bhagavatam. They're both kirtan, not simply chanting Hare Krishna or going Sankirtan. Also, this hearing Bhagavatam and reading Bhagavatam and reciting Bhagavatam, that's also kirtan, right? That's also remembering Krishna. And especially Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita and Krishna are non-different. And the subject of the Bhagavatam itself is Bhagavan and Bhakta. So you're, and basically also Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavan and Bhakta, Arjuna and Krishna, and Sukadeva Goswami or Vyasadeva or Sutta Goswami or Parikshit Maharaj or Yudhisthira Maharaj and Krishna. That's the subject of these two books. So, in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment, Bhagaisvaya prasaktanam taya parata chetasam, vyavasatmika buddhir ekaha kurunandana, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Vyavasatmika buddhir samado navidyate. So, therefore, they can't focus their mind on this one thing, Krishna, because their mind is always wandering here and there. It's just like a little kid in kindergarten. So the teacher said, okay, now we're going to learn this letter A. everyone say A. Everyone says A except this one boy. And the teacher said, why didn't you say A? He said, oh, I want to sharpen my pencil. Well, I didn't ask you to sharpen your pencil. I said to say A. So can you say A? He said, wait a minute, I have to go to the bathroom. Wait a minute. Okay, go to the bathroom and come back. And he comes back and said, okay, can you say A now? He said, but the other person next to me, he hit me. So you see, the mind is wandering always, right? Because there's a desire for sense growth. The kid doesn't really want to be in school. He wants to stay home and watch the Disney movies, or watch this or watch that, or do this or do that. So it has to be trained to fix his mind, or as, there's a saying in my language, it's that pay attention to the food that's on your plate. Because sometimes, kids, they're talking and they're saying this or that, or they're not really focused on eating, right? Their mind is somewhere else. Or they're watching the news, and it's horrible news, and they're, and the plate is in front of them, but they're not really eating, right? So we have to keep our mind focused on Krishna. But it's not difficult. You simply chant Hare Krishna. So therefore, the question is another verse that explains this. That is, how do we keep our mind fixed on Krishna? Well, Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. And then Purnak Sudanitya Mukto Binat Purnat Sudanitya Mukto Abhinandan Namanamino. That is, that this holy name of Krishna is non-different than Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam is non-different than Krishna. Bhagavad Gita is non-different than Krishna. So if we just focus on these things, the Harinam, the holy name of the Lord, the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, then our mind is fixed on Krishna. And these things are Abhinatvam Namanamino, this Leela Kata, the pastimes of the Lord, this holy name of the Lord. All these things are non-different, or it's also said Advaya Jnana, non-different. There's no difference. They're all focused on Krishna. So that is what we have to do. When we chant Hare Krishna, actually the Lord is dancing on our tongue. Of course, we may not realize it at first, but it's a fact. Krishna is actually dancing on the tongue of the devotee. And therefore, by recitation of the Lord's pastimes, by hearing those recitations, by chanting Hare Krishna, hearing the mantra Hare Krishna, then we are so associating directly with the Lord. But yet, we still get attracted, just like sometimes you might have a whimsical thought, let me go into a bookstore and look at the books. Right? So you go in and you say, oh, this is a really interesting book, The Origin of Hinduism by Dr. So-and-so. Maybe I should read that book. Or, How to Grow Vegetables in Your Kitchen. That sounds interesting. Maybe I should read that book. And then another book, The Most Famous Sayings of Great Philosophers. I should read that book. So you go into a bookstore and there's thousands of books. Well, all those books, there's a name for them. They are Tad Vyasa Tirtam. They are only for crows, crow-like men. Tat Vyasa Tirtam. Tirtam means a place of pilgrimage. So they're only a place of pilgrimage for crows. Just like, even amongst the birds, there's different. There are different castes. You have the swan caste. They're in the mode of goodness. You have the crow caste of birds. They're in the mode of ignorance. You have the pigeon caste, you have the different types. They're all different types of birds, and they all stick together. They all fly in flocks, and they're all attracted to the same things. The crows are attracted to garbage. The swans are attracted to lotus flowers. So even amongst the birds, there are castes, like there are people. So this particular caste, Tat Vayasam Tirtam, these are low-class people that congregate not in the temple. The devotees come to the temple to congregate, to be in congregation, to chant together, dance together. And the crow-like people, they go to the nightclub to congregate, or to the casino to congregate and talk nonsense and hear nonsense and eat nonsense. And then the other class of unworthy people, they go and to hear Shakespeare or this philosopher or that philosopher, or read this book or that book, all nonsense things that take your mind away from Krishna. So, Prabhupada says those who are in Krishna consciousness, they are being trained to become hamsas, or they are hamsas. Hamsas means swans. And those going to these different mundane schools, they're trained to become vyasa, crows. So which way do you want your kid to be trained? To be a hamsa, or paramahamsa, or to be vyasa, vyasa. Vyasa means crow. So we have to make these decisions. But and then Prabhupada says, therefore, Paramahamsa, Krishna is everywhere. Goloka eva nivasati akilatma bhuta. He's in the spiritual world and he's in the material world. When you read Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter and 10th chapter and 11th chapter, you learn to see Krishna's presence in the material world. And then when you read, as we're doing Srimad Bhagavatam, we learn about Krishna's presence in the spiritual world. But Krishna is everywhere. But the devotees can see Krishna everywhere. And how is that? Well, it's by devotional service. When you engage in devotional service, you transform any place you're in into Vaikuntha. It becomes a place of no anxiety. It becomes a happy place. It becomes a place where you can always chant Hare Krishna and you feel inspired. It's not a labor it's not a labor of misery. It's a labor of love. So therefore, iha yasya harira dasya karmana manasachira akilasvapi avastasu jivan muktasa uchete. You become jivan mukta, or a liberated soul, wherever you are, because you're using everything in the service of the Lord. This is a very important point, using everything in the service of the Lord. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because of Srila Prabhupada and his mercy. He has taught us how to use everything in the service of the Lord. So this is explained, 2nd chapter, 63rd verse, where it says, Krodhat bhavati samaha, samahat smriti vibrama, smriti vibrama sat buddhina, so buddhina sat pranasyati. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pond or pool. Well, that doesn't sound like what we just said it is, but in the purport, Prabhupada says, Srila Rupa Goswami has given us this direction. Prapad Chikataya Budhya Hari Sambandhu Vastana Mumukshubhihi Parityago Vairagyam Falgu Katyate. So this is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, by development of Krishna consciousness, one can know that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. Those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects. And as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain to the perfect stage of renunciation. Their so-called renunciation is called falgu, or less important. On the other hand, a person in Krishna consciousness knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. For example, for an impersonalist, the Lord or the Absolute, being impersonal, cannot eat, whereas an impersonalist tries to avoid good eatables. A devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and that he eats all that is offered to him in devotion. So after offering good eatables to the Lord, the devotee takes the remnants called prasadam. Thus, everything becomes spiritualized and there's no danger of a downfall. Why? Because the devotee is satisfied, right? He's not engaging in artificial austerities. The only austerity is, instead of eating junk, he only eats prasadam, and to have the prasadam, he has to offer it properly to Krishna and prepare it properly for Krishna with love and devotion. Thus, everything becomes spiritualized, and there's no danger of a downfall. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotee rejects it as material. The impersonalist, therefore, cannot enjoy life due to his artificial renunciation, and for this reason, a slight agitation of the mind pulls him down again into the pool of material existence. It is said that such a soul, even though rising up to the point of liberation, falls down again due to his not having support in devotional service. So this is the difference between the devotee and the non-devotee. And Mayavadis are considered non-devotees, although they may be yogis or they may be jnanis, but they're not considered genuine devotees because they have mixed desires. They can't keep their mind fixed always on Krishna. But the devotees can, by the easy method of chanting Hare Krishna, offering food to Krishna, the type of food that he prefers, and then he offers it back as prasadam, and festivals, and all kinds of wonderful programs that keeps the mind focused on Krishna, and happily. Susakam kartam avyayam. Everything in devotional service is happily performed because one has a direct relationship with Krishna through the devotion. So, therefore, this Namachintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purnat Shuddha Nitya Mukto Binat Vam Namanamino. The holy name of Krishna is transcendently blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions, for it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna's name is complete, and it is the form of all transcendental mellows. It is not a material name under any condition, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is not contaminated by the material qualities, there's no question of its being involved with Maya. Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual. It is never conditioned by the laws of material nature. This is because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. This is a direct quote from the Padma Purana. So we have to realize, it's just like, let's say, when you're a kid, you got a toy gun. But when you join the army, you got the latest model of a super machine gun that can shoot, 500 bullets in less than 10 seconds. Now, it's still a gun, right? You got a play gun when you're a kid, and now you've joined the military and you got this highly sophisticated machine gun, right? But there's a difference in the power. Well, we don't realize the power of the holy name. The holy name is even more powerful than that machine gun that can shoot 500 bullets in 10 seconds. This holy name is the most powerful thing in the world, actually, because the holy name is none different than Krishna, and Krishna is the most powerful, the most beautiful, the most wealthy, the most intelligent, and so forth. So, therefore, we don't realize what this holy name is. This mantra, Namachintamani Krishna, gives us an idea. It's something completely transcendental. It's non-different than Krishna himself. It has all the potency of Krishna. So if we take it seriously, this chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So to understand how powerful this holy name is, we have to purify our senses, including the mind. Ateva Krishnera Nama Deha Vilasa Pakritendriya Graya Nahe Hayaswa Prakasa. The holy name of Krishna, his body, his pastimes cannot be understood by the blunt material senses. They are manifested independently. And Prabhupada says, since Krishna's transcendental body, name, form, qualities, pastimes, and entourage are all absolute truth, they are as good as Krishna himself, Chat Chitananda Vigraha. As long as the living entity is conditioned by the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the objects of his material senses, material form, taste, smell, sound, and touch, will not help him understand spiritual knowledge and bliss. Rather, these are revealed to the pure devotee. So this knowledge is revealed. It is not learned through academic study. It's revealed. Just like, how did Gorkishore Babaji be qualified to initiate Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur? Because he had revealed knowledge. He didn't know how to read and write, but he had revealed knowledge. And one of the most intelligent people in the history of the world, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, surrendered to him. This person who can't even read and write, because he had revealed knowledge from the Lord. He was seeing the Lord always. So, therefore, this is a different type of education. This is a different type of culture. It's not the culture of the demons trying to imitate yoga siddhis by mechanical means. Obviously, they'll never really do it properly. But you can attain all the siddhis simply by chanting Hare Krishna. You don't even have to. Maharaj Ambarish, he did not practice mystical yoga like Durvasa Muni, but he had more power than Durvasa Muni. And Vishwamrita, when he was a king and a Kshatriya, he suddenly realized that Vasistha Muni had more power than he did. He was able to withstand all the attempts to kill him by Vishwamrita Muni. And then Vishwamrita Muni decided, I got to become a Brahmana, like Vasistha. And it took him a long time, many, many years of meditation and self-abnegation to become Raja Rishi, or a saintly type of a Brahminical type of king. So we see that we don't really understand, we'll never be able to understand Krishna with our material senses. We have to purify these senses, and the purification process is by chanting, taking prasadam, dancing, and hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam regularly. Krishna Nama, Krishna Guna, Krishna Lila Vrinda, Krishnera Swarupa Sama, Sabachid Ananda. Krishna's holy name, transcendental qualities, and transcendental pastimes are all equal to Lord Krishna himself. They are all spiritual and full of bliss. Atakshi Krishna Nama, Adina Bhavidgraham Indriyai, Sevan Mukehi Jivado, Swayam Eva Spuratyada. Therefore, material senses cannot appreciate or understand Krishna's holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes. When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service by using his tongue to chant the Lord's holy name and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified, and one gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is. So every day we should purify our tongue by chanting Hare Krishna and tasting Mahaprasadam. Okay. Such a nice process. It's so simple. It's so wonderful. It's so enjoyable. Why not do it? See? Why should we taste, wine and liquor and smoke things like marijuana to feel happy? It's unnecessary. All we have to do is chant Hare Krishna and take very nice prasadam and thank the Lord. Sarira Vidyaja Jyotendriya Tayika. The senses are pathways to death, And the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable of all the senses. It's very difficult to control the tongue in this world. But you, O Krishna, are very kind. You have given us this prasadam, this holy food. Let us take this prasadam and respect it and thank Lord Chaitanya and Radha and Krishna for providing this wonderful transcendental process of Krishna consciousness. So that, we're reciting that prayer every day, Sarira Vidya Jyotendriya Dharika, because this is scientific. Chanting, taking prasadam, and dancing. This is scientific because if we do it sincerely, it leads to becoming purified. And when our senses are purified and the mind is purified, then we can see Krishna always. Therefore, we need to become real serious about Krishna consciousness. And this is also explained in the Sri Vaishnava tradition, in the Mukundamala Sutram, where it says, Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam Advaya Me Vashatu Manasaraja Hamsa. That is, that King Kalushakar is saying that this Advaya Me Vashatu, it means that he wants to be like the swan. The swan goes where there's clean water and there's beautiful lotus flowers growing, and he dips his head into the roots of those lotus flowers and tastes the nectar of them. So King Kalushakar is saying this prayer that he wants to be like that swan, to always dip his head into the transcendental water of Krishna consciousness and taste the nectar, the roots of the lotus flowers. So, and the same thing is said in the Gaudiya Vaishnava, Gopi Bhartar Padaka Kamalayor Dasa Dasa Dasanu Dasa, that I will be successful when I become the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the most sincere servants who are gopis, who are serving Krishna. So this humility of not thinking that I can serve Krishna directly, but by serving the servants of Krishna, it's like the same as King Kalushakar is dipping one's head into the transcendental water of the Krishna consciousness and tasting the nectar of the roots of the lotus flowers. So then our life, Prabhupada says, will be successful. Very easily we can cross over the ocean of nescience. And then he says, there's another verse. Samasritaye padapalava plavam mahatpadam punya yaso murare bhavan buddhir vatsapadam parampadam padam yat vipadam nate sam. He says, there's a great ocean of ignorance, bhavam buddhi, in which we are now fallen and struggling for existence. Exactly just like if you're thrown into the ocean, you may be a very good swimmer, but the condition is very dangerous. You'll have to struggle. You cannot say, I am a good swimmer. I shall be very easily able to cross over the ocean. No, that's not possible. But if you take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Samasritaye padapalava plavam, anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, what is that lotus? What are those lotus feet? Mahat padam. It is the shelter of the whole material creation. Mahat Tattva, the Mahat Tattva. From the Mahat Tattva, the total material energy comes. That is called Mahat Tattva. From Mahat Tattva, the whole cosmic manifestations come. Therefore, the lotus feet of Krishna means there is also Mahat Tattva. Many, many Mahat Tattvas. Samasritaye padapalava plavam Mahat padam punya yaso murare. Murare is another name of Krishna. He's the holder of the flute. Punjayasa, pavitram paramam bhavam. So these are all different parts of verses that are saying the same thing. He says, this great ocean of nescience or ignorance becomes a small spot of water as it is made by the footprint of the calf. Vatsapadam. So this prayer is saying that the Lord can reduce this vast ocean of ignorance to the little bit of water that's contained in the hoof print of a calf, and you can easily cross it then. You can't swim across it on your own power, but when the Lord reduces it to something insignificant like the hoof print of a calf and the water contained in that hoof print, then you can cross it very easily. And this is what he does. He makes it easy for the devotee to cross over the whole ocean of ignorance of this material world. And therefore Prabhupada says, let us be engaged always chanting or reading the pastimes of the Lord. Lila Katha. If you read Srimad Bhagavatam, then it's full of Lila Katha, the pastimes of Lord Krishna. So that is the only way to get out of the miserable condition of this material world. Therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Chinada pi sunichena tarurapi saistana amanina manadena kirtaniya sada hari. Kirtaniya, this is Lila Katha, Kirtaniya. When you read or hear or chant about the pastimes of the Lord, that is also Kirtana. And if you chant Hare Krishna mantra with instrument, that is also Kirtana. There is no difference. So we must engage Kirtana Sada Hari. Either we should chant Hare Krishna mantra or we should read our books. This is wanted. Then we will be safe from Maya. Otherwise, at any time, we can be victimized. Wow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is real preaching. We have to be convinced of this. We have to be convinced that there's nothing better than the holy name of Krishna. And the power of the holy name is invincible. It's unfathomable how powerful this holy name is. Okay, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? Yes. It's the same lecture. 7th Canto, 9th Chapter. This is text 19. Yes, because what Prabhupada said, what Krishna has said is there, and then Prabhupada brings it all together, shows all the correspondences, and makes everything clear, so that we have no doubts in our mind about chanting and dancing and feasting and hearing. Yes.
So what did Maharaj Pariksit commit? Did he commit sin or mistake by the acts for which he was cursed? Was that mistake or sin?
He made a little mistake.
No sin, yeah?
Well, we answered this before. If an ordinary person did that, it would be considered sinful and extremely offensive. But in the case of Maharaj Pariksit, it was considered a little mistake.
Because in the purport.
Well, it's like this. Let's say someone bumps into you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're some big guru, right? And you have hundreds of disciples, and somebody bumps into you. So the disciples would be ready to really punish that person for doing that. But if you say, oh, it's okay, I'm not hurt, and this person did it, I don't think he did it purposely, he did it by accident, he wasn't paying attention, shouldn't do anything. So you see, from the point of view of the disciples, it was very serious. From the point of view of the guru himself, he said, it's okay, and he didn't really mean it.
Because here in the, right at the end of the purport, the quotes of 11th canto, I have it here.
Yeah.
It says, the verse translation is,
Swapadamulam bhajata priyasya.
you got a translation of it?
No.
Okay, I have. One who has thus given up all other engagements and has taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is very dear to the Lord. Indeed, if such a surrendered soul accidentally commits some sinful activity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated within everyone's heart, immediately takes away the reaction to such sin. So Parikirma is also surrender soul. So a surrender soul can accidentally commit sin. Not just a mistake, but also sin is mentioned here.
I said, for an ordinary person to put a dead snake on the neck of a saintly person while he's meditating would be considered very sinful.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Maharaj Pariksit, it was not worthy of being so sinful, and Samika Rishi confirmed that.
Mm-hmm.
He tells his son, this was not, your punishment is not commensurate to the act that he committed. He should not be condemned to death because he put that snake around my neck. Okay, well, let's read what it says.
So, they also prepared, actually, 11 canto.
What?
There's a purport.
Yeah, go ahead, read it.
In the previous verse, in the previous verse, it was clearly described that a fully surrendered devotee of the Supreme Lord, a fully surrendered devotee of the Supreme Lord has no need to perform ordinary worldly duties. Now, in this verse, it is revealed that devotional service is so pure and potent that a surrendered devotee of the Lord has no need to perform any other purificatory process. As described in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, a surrendered devotee has no need to perform prayaschita, which is atonement, or atonement for an accidental fall down into sinful activity. Since devotional service is itself the most purifying process, a sincere devotee who has accidentally stumbled on the path should immediately resume his pure devotional service at the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus the Lord will protect him, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:30. Apichet sudacharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadur eva samantavya samyak vyavasito isaha. The word tiaktenia, it's a long purport. Do you want me to read it still?
We've discussed all these points before. We've
It's
discussed that verse,
a very long purport.
Abhichet Sudaracharo, and so forth.
No, this is in the purport of this.
No, but what is your point? What is your point?
No, what I'm saying that you're talking about Pariksit Maharaj, that instance of Pariksit Maharaj just is a mistake, it's not sin at all. Because he is a pure devotee, a surrendered soul can also accidentally commit sin. Not necessarily, not just a mistake. So I'm just trying to work out the word Pariksit Maharaj, we call that just mistake, not sin.
I said that if an ordinary person did that, it would be considered very sinful.
Okay.
In the case of Maharaj Pariksit, it was not taken by Samika Rishi as a serious sin. And let's see what Prabhupada says. He says, after explaining the general codes relating to the royal position and asserting that the king can do no wrong, and therefore is never to be condemned, the sage Samika wanted to say something about Emperor Pariksit specifically. The specific qualification of Maharaj Pariksit is summarized herein. The king, even calculated as a king only, was most celebrated as a ruler who administered the religious principles of the royal order. In the Shastras, the duties of all castes and orders of society are prescribed. All the qualities of a Kshatriya mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 18:43 were present in the person of the emperor. He was also a great devotee of the Lord and a self-realized soul. Cursing such a king when he was tired and fatigued with hunger and thirst was not at all proper. Samika Rishi thus admitted from all sides that Maharaj Pariksit was cursed most unjustly. Although all the Brahmanas were aloof from the incident, still, for the childish action of a Brahmana boy, the whole world's situation was changed. Thus, Rishi Samika, a Brahmana, took responsibility for all deterioration of the good orders of the world. So, I mean, there's more about this. I'm not going to read it because we're already going over it. It was Maharaj Pariksit is in a special position. He's not only an ideal king, following all the rules and regulations according to Varnashram Dharma, but he was also a pure devotee. And to curse him to death for what he did was inappropriate. It was not just. So and this Samikya Rishi was saying it. But because he did that, it started this whole process of deterioration of the Brahminical class in Kali Yuga. This one, in other words, he's saying that his son's mistake was much greater than Maharaj Parikshit's mistake. Much, much greater. No comparison.
You see, Maharaj, my question was based on the purport today. Today's purport is mentioned that the conditions of material world are so made that one has to commit sin willingly or unwillingly, and the best example is Maharaj Parikshit himself, right? It is said in the purport.
But what is your point?
So my point was a mistake or a sin, because here.
Are you agreeing with Sringi that it was so sinful that he should be cursed to death?
No, it's that. Question is that the condition.
And a sin is a sin, right?
Okay.
It's a serious thing, right?
Okay.
So are you agreeing with Sringi that is a sin?
But here he said the sin can be committed unwillingly. Like, it's because this purpose is based on Parikshit Maharaj, right? So he said the condition of the material world are so made that one has to commit sins willingly or unwillingly. And the best example is Maharaj Parikshit himself.
All of us are committing sins unwillingly. We've discussed this before. It's called Panchasuna. Everyone is sinning every day, wittingly or unwittingly, not even willingly or unwittingly, wittingly or unwittingly, right? You're committing sins also every day by taking your walk. You're killing hundreds and thousands of living entities just by walking down the Safeway and walking back. But you're not doing it for sense gratification. You're doing it to chant your rounds. So, therefore, the position of the devotee is different than the position of the ordinary karmi.
Okay, why you said Maharaj Parikshit himself, the best example is Maharaj Parikshit himself. After saying this about...
But what is your point, though? I mean, are you saying that he committed a sin on the same level as karmi?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying he committed sin unwillingly, not just
but
mistake.
You're also committing sins unwillingly. I'm also committing sins unwillingly.
Well, I'm saying about...
But what's the difference? The difference is that verse, Abhichet Sudaracharo Bhajanti Mam Ananyava Sadar Eva Samantavya Samyak Vyavasito Hisaha. Now, I've read that verse before and the entire purport. You have to understand what that verse says.
No matter what, I want to give you the answer. Is Maharaj Parikshit committed just mistake or unwillingly sin? That's what I want to know, because mentioned the purpose. It's not me.
Everybody's unwittingly committing sins. Not
Maharaj,
unwillingly, but unwittingly.
Okay, so Maharaj did that. So he said the best example is Maharaj Parikshit.
It's not the same, though. It's not the same as an ordinary person. Don't you understand?
Okay. Okay. You want to read it?
No, I read that. I have that.
Okay.
I think the question is it definition of what is a mistake and what is an unwilling sin?
Right.
It's unwitting, not unwilling. Or unwilling. Okay, you could say unwilling.
Unwilling sin, yeah. Because I get a bit confused. That's why I want clarification, that's all.
Clarification is it's an accidental fall down. And if a person continues in devotional service, as Maharaj Parikshit did, it's excused. That's the whole purpose of that verse 9:30. It says that in the Nishinga Purana, the following statement is given. Bhagavat Harav Ananya Cheta. The meaning is that even if one fully engages in devotional service to the Lord, is sometimes found engaged in abominable activities, these activities should be considered to be like the spots that resemble the mark of a rabbit on the moon. Such spots do not become an impediment to the diffusion of moonlight. Similarly, the accidental fall down of a devotee from the path of saintly character does not make him abominable. So I'm telling you, it's not the same thing. It's not like a karmi committing a sin. It's different in the case of Maharaj Pariksit.
So we can say it is the unwillingly sin.
Everybody unwillingly is committing sins. Don't you understand? It's called panchasuna.
What about in the case of Maharaj Pariksit here in the purport? He said he's the best example.
What is your point? I don't understand what your point is.
My question was simple, Maharaj. Was that just a mistake or a kind of sinful?
It's an accidental fall down. Okay, it's accidental.
Okay.
You're also committing sins every day just by walking, just by breathing.
I know that, Maharaj.
Okay, so is it a sin or is it a mistake?
Is it sin? It's sin according to.
But according to the principles, if you sin, you have to get a reaction.
But then
You have to get a sinful reaction.
Exactly, but the Lord forgives you if you are engaged, if you are surrendered to Him. That's what He says. In the 11, that verse from 11, I read the last verse proper quoted.
So let's say you're in the bathroom and you're cleaning the surface of something, and accidentally you kill a mosquito or a bug. Is that a sin?
It is. It is. But because it's devotional service.
No, you would say it's not a sin. It's a mistake. I made a mistake. I didn't see the bug.
But still, that's why, like you told me when you're walking, panchasuna, you're walking, you're killing, or you're driving, so many insects.
Yeah, but you would say it's a mistake. I didn't mean to do it.
No, what I'm saying is the sin, it still is this sin.
It's not the same thing. You understand? If you continue devotional service.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because a sin, there has to be a reaction. For every sin, there's a reaction. But you're being excused because you're continuing in devotional service sincerely. And it's considered a mistake. You made a mistake. You can call it a sin if you want to, but if a sin has a reaction to it, this doesn't have an.
Okay, Maharaj, I just want you to help me. I want to understand this. I'm going to read that again. The conditions of the material world are so made that one has to commit sins willingly or unwillingly.
Yes.
And the best example is Maharaj Pariksit himself. So between willingly and unwillingly, so why Maharaj Pariksit is the best example of what?
You're not understanding what you're reading. That's the problem. Or you don't want to understand, one or the other. You just think about it.
Okay.